is a 1991 Evinrude 60 horse VRO variable ratio oil, and the engine's not idling right. I got to take the carbs off and clean them out. So that's what today's job is going to be. Before I start, got the Evinrude carb rebuild kits. Got a jug of this stuff, which is supposed to be amazing carb solvent cleaner. And when I take the carbs off, there's 3 carbs on this engine. I'm going to number each and keep them separate. I've got 3 of these jugs, 1 for each carb. Alright. So I'm going to bring the camera around here and show you some stuff here. You see this? There's a well right down in here on each side of the engine, and you can't work on this without stuffing something in there to prevent any small nuts or bolts or cotter pins, whatever, from dropping in that well. So that's good. There really isn't much chance of anything getting in on this other side of the engine, so I got to take this air box off the very first thing. So what was the very first thing I said? I can't let the screw come down in there. I got one in there. That's right there. Don't drop it. Okay, good. I can tell you those screws could have been located in a little better spot, being just below the edge of this. I gotta take pictures of stuff as I'm taking it apart to help me, especially the way that these linkages connect, the way that these throttle cables and shifter cable and stuff come on, those connectors. Next, these carbs. So there's a vent line comes into the bottom of this air box. I have to remove that. Okay, good. That come off easy enough. There's just a little cotter pin here on this shifter linkage that I got to take off. I'll use my needle nose on that. See if I can get a hold of it with this. There it comes. That worked good. Now this will just come out with nothing. Okay. Well, hopefully that'll work okay. So I have to remove 4 fuel lines. This is your primer solenoid. This thing pumps fuel right in carb when you're priming the engine to try to start. There's not much to this little retainer here. there. That's your throttle linkage for the 3 carbs. Let's go around here. Show you these 3 fuel lines here. There's the fuel line into the top carb, then right into the middle, and then the 3rd one drops down right in here to feed the bottom carb. So I just got to pop those off. These fuel lines are held on with zip ties, and those zip ties need to be cut off before you attempt to remove these fuel lines. You'll see why in a second. What I learned after the fact is that this plastic fuel manifold breaks so frequently that Evinrude has had to replace it with a brass fuel manifold. My nephew works as a marine mechanic, and he told me that they routinely break them. Those fuel lines are on there nice and tight, that's for freaking sure. So there's, you can see a T here. This is the fuel line that's going across that solenoid, that primer pump. But let's get this off here first. Oh my God. She's coming. Uh-oh. Son of a bitch. I just broke this. Shit. See that? There we go. Okay. That's all. But now, damn, I'm gonna have to order me up that part. I figured out I needed some snips to cut these zip ties off, so I go and get some snips, and I'm still, even after cutting the zip ties off, I still end up busting another one of these stupid little plastic nipples. Guess I should have done this to start with. Bottom fuel line, top fuel line. I just pulled this guy out of the line that's feeding that primer pump. I'm just about to break the second nipple off this stupid plastic fuel manifold, and that's even after removing the zip ties from the fuel hose. Holy, oh, look at that. That son of a bitch just broke off in there. So she's finally time to start just taking these 3 carburetors off here. These are 1/2 inch. Now see here, as you screw them out, the nut is buttoned right up against here. So you have to do one side at a time and wiggle it out. Okay, I gotta get the other side here a bit. That carb is already, it's already loose and wanting to come out. Right. One nut for the carb. So look at this small fuel line that I pointed at right here. That's the fuel line coming from your primer pump. That injects fuel directly into your carburetor right there. And there's one of those lines feeding each carburetor. It's used for startup when you're priming your engine. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to label this primer line once I get it off of here. There's my top carb. Nut, middle carb. Just got 2 more nuts, 1 more carb to get off here. Yeah, I took this boat. We were going to go camping this year up to Slave Lake, and I had no time to work on it, so I took it into a marina because it wouldn't run at all in the spring. And they supposedly fixed these carbs, but they did a shit job. I think all they did was put some sea foam or something like that in, just enough the damn engine would run and nothing else. This last one here is like the most awkward nut of any of them yet. Okay, I got the nut off, but the primer line into this bottom too. See that? Pull this thing off. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. All 3 carbs are off. Everything is okay except for this. Well, you know what they say about the best laid plans. The carbs don't fit in those jugs. I'll just get a cardboard box to throw them in. It is the morning after I did the work on my boat carbs. Pulled the carbs last night, and one thing that I ran into, so I've seen other videos that talk about doing the carbs, and none of them tell you about this crap plastic fuel manifold. And so I broke off 2 of the nipples. There's also a plastic T right here. So when I went to try to find this part, and there's a part number right on it, you can look it up, and I come to this. First of all, when I broke it, and it broke so easy, I was thinking, why the hell is that plastic, right? And sure enough, when I look it up, it's a brass part now. It says right here the part has been superseded to this. Part used to be plastic, but it had a lot of issues. I can testify to that. So they replaced it with a brass fitting. I've got to order that fitting, and at the same time, I'm going to do this here. This is just 5/32 fuel line. You can buy it by the foot. I basically need a foot of it. Like brass T. I can also get replacement brass T, so I'm going to do that. This plastic crap is going to go. So that's where I'm at with that. It'll all work out. It'll be just fine, and lesson learned. So if you're going to tackle one of these Johnson or Evinrude engines, look out. Now, I should have been smart enough to nip them off before I tried removing these. But I gotta admit, the one fitting that I broke, I had removed the zip tie on it, and I still managed to break it because this plastic is so friggin' brittle. And of course, it's a 1991 engine, right? So it's old. I suppose that might be a factor, but I think the bigger factor is that that's a crappy piece. Next step I'm going to go and I'm going to pull the carbs apart and get them soaking in solvent. So I'm doing a carb job on my 1991 60 horse Evinrude VRO. We had the boat up at Lesser Slave Lake this summer, and it would run, but it wouldn't idle well at all. So I know I've got jets plugged, not sure. I guess the assumption would be your low-speed jet, but don't quote me on that. So I pulled the carbs off and brought them to work here. Okay, I got all three of my carbs here, and got my solvent. I made a bucket for each to keep them all separate. And these guys, okay, now observe this as we come apart here. That means there's some result in acid, fat acid. This right here is the main thing we're dealing with. This center jab. This reason I removed and then run it with fine wire with grease on. So one place these make sure they have one of those. So one of these are only. After it's Saturday, the log test over there, and these ones are there. Wonder solvent. This jug was 76 bucks. So I'll tell you what, when I'm done with this, all the stuff that comes out of these carbs is going back in that jug. That'll work. Okay. Now I'm going to remove the idle adjustment screw, but the first thing you do is you turn it in to seat it, and when you do that you count the number of turns. You seat it very gently, of course, so you don't damage the needle. And then after you know that, then you can remove it. When you reassemble the carburetor, you return it to that same position. You seat it all the way in, back it out that number of turns you counted. In this case, on each of my carburetors, 2 1/8 turn. Get it seated in the same position. So I got to do this for each carburetor. Take this out. So 1, 2. Call that about 2 1/8. Once I had the idle adjustment screws out of each carburetor, now I'm taking out the screw that plugs the access hole for your low speed jet. And I had a real problem here because on my top and middle carburetors, that screw was back right out, which it should be turned in snug, should be tight, right? The bottom carburetor was properly seated and snug. The top and middle carburetors, this screw wasn't even tightened in, and I think it's supposed to be. They were back right out. Whereas this one was tightened up snugly. And I kind of believe that that's the way that it should have been. So. There's tiny words right there. But I think I'm going to go there. So that's right there. That's allowing access to the words. My camera battery died when I was removing the float assembly and needle valve and seat for it. I have all the little parts pulled out, and I've dried these off, blew them off with air. What I got to do now, there's two plugs here. Where are we? This plug and this plug. These are called Welsh plugs or Welch plugs. I don't know whether you're Welsh or Welch, it's the same damn thing. But so what we got to do is drill a little hole in that. So I got a 1/8 drill, small punch. Once I drill the hole in that, then put the punch in the hole, pop that out. Oh, so I guess I should explain something here. This plug here, so there's a small orifice down here. You can see it if you shine your flashlight in.
The low speed
and this guy
jet.
here lets you get at it. So once this is removed, I'll be able to put in my solvent can run in here, but I can get my air, compressed air in here, and that'll let me blow it out backwards, and that'll clean that orifice. Hey, you stupid little cat! Quit scratching me, stupid cat! Hey! He's using my leg for his freaking scratching post. Lightly punch that.
Notice the white lithium grease on the tip of the drill bit so that metal filings will stick to that grease.
Okay, that was easy. Now this guy. Okay, and I'm still very much interested in keeping all of my carbs separate. These are the time. Pop. Beautiful. Oh, geez, that went over really easy. Wow. Removing this plug here, look at this is what it lets you do. The flashlight here.
This is really fast, but you can see the blue of the two-stroke oil still in that jet.
And you can see right in that port there now.
I was amazed by that. All three carbs were the same. That low-speed jet was still plugged with two-stroke oil, and the solvent didn't penetrate down into that until I removed that Welsh plug. And the other amazing thing was with the Welsh plug out, it only took 1 hour for the solvent to dissolve
My
all that
solvent
two-stroke
didn't
oil.
penetrate in there. Look at, that's blue. There's still stuff in there. I want to see if an hour of soaking made a change. Oh, it did. Look at that. When I put that in there an hour ago, and I saw the flashlight in there, that was blue. It was blue. You could clearly see the oil still sitting in it. Wow, that's amazing. 1 hour. I'm going to check each one and see. Yep. That one's also clean. One thing I'll just mention too, putting the white lithium grease on that drill bit, it worked. I just wiped the grease off and the grease was loaded with metal filings. Which means I don't think any metal filings stayed in those orifices. Good. Oh yeah, that is freaking beautiful. So now, we're just gonna put the carbs in ice here. This side, you're actually this one sits down right here, Zordas, and a little water maker, big. Yeah, I hope that when I videotaped that there an hour ago, and you could, well, I could clearly see the blue sitting down in that jet. I hope that the video captured that, because that was really amazing. And then so also, like in just an hour, the way the solvent cleaned that out is amazing. Just grab this bottom bowl out of the solvent just to show you that same idea, right? Shine the flashlight in there, you can very clearly see how clear that nozzle is, which is the whole purpose of removing this. That's it. That little nozzle that's down there, by the way, is removable, but I don't need it.
That orifice is actually the high-speed jet.
So after what I just see on that other card, the solvent didn't penetrate into this, it didn't penetrate down through here to this jet. I'll bet you anything it didn't remove the stuff here either. So same deal, I got a...
So to make a long story short, all three carburetors, even though they soaked in solvent, the solvent didn't penetrate down into that low-speed jet until I removed the Welsh plug. Once I removed the Welsh plug, I inspected it with my flashlight. I saw there was still oil in there, and then I put it back in the solvent, and in just 1 hour the solvent dissolved that oil that was still there. And then I blew out all of the orifices again, which cleaned all three carburetors right up.
So recently. Yeah, so I was just saying, I didn't initially dedicate out in I read more about this every week. And importance of everything. And glad to take this down. So here we'll look at my carbs here. Little shout out for the gunk. That stuff is wonderful solvent. I will tell you this though, these rubber gloves for working with this stuff, thinking that's, you know, safety first, all that. The stuff eats those gloves. So
You can hear the darn little kitten mewing constantly in the background here, so I go and grab him and pick him up.
alright, come here kitten.
And here is the little kitten that we call Mr. Black, or Keith. And because he's a black cat, he's Keith Black. Friendly little bugger, man. You come in the shop, he just follows you around, he purrs, and you just about step on the little guy. The mechanic got him out there to try to control the mice in our maintenance shop. That's a fact.
My carb clean has gone really good. And it was a damn good thing I removed this Welsh plug that let me access this low-speed jet, because there was congealed two-stroke oil sitting right in that jet. The solvent didn't penetrate. It wouldn't penetrate in there until this was pulled. Now, so we're at the point where we can assemble the carbs, but before I do it, I'm going to spray the heck out of them with brake clean. I want to make sure I rinse as much residual solvent off the carbs as I can. And then of course the brake clean will rinse that off, and then it just dries itself, right? Also, for seating these Welsh plugs, needed a couple of punches for seating my Welsh plugs. And I didn't have a punch the correct size, so I just took 2 bolts, ground them smooth, flat file to clean them right up. And that's my punches. Can I shoot that down here? Just gotta go and dispose of this in the bar salt tank. Okay, I give all my 3 carbs a real nice spray with that brake clean, and now I'm gonna let them sit here and dry 10:30 in the morning. I think there might be a Blue Jays game coming on. I'll go watch that. It'll give these plenty of time to dry right up and put them back together. Shazam! Here's the components of our carb rebuild kit. So we gotta very, very carefully. Alright. So first thing, there's a washer for this guy.
That's the seat for your fuel inlet valve.
Okay. Now this guy here, it's really something the way this little guy goes on here. There's a tiny little U-shaped hook right here. And that valve.
The tiny little retainer spring and needle for this fuel valve are really something, the way that they go together, and trying to hold them and put those 2 things together with my meat hooks is a little bit of a trick, actually. It's a pretty standard design though.
Okay. He's right in there. Next, this guy. Whoops. But I'm getting ahead of myself here because it's okay to put that piece in, but what I got to do before I go and put that on is I have to have my Welsh plugs put back in here. Yep, that's the one for there. Here's my handy punch that I made for this job. Voila. I believe that's fine. Okay. Okay, that's for your low speed jet orifice, and then this other guy here. Okay. Back over here for a second now.
This is your idle speed adjustment screw that I'm going to put in. This guy, you seat it all the way in very gently, and then you back it out the number of turns you counted before you took it out. 2 1/8 turns.
So remembering the earlier part of my video, 2 1/8 turns. So I just hit the bottom very gently. So I go 1, 2. That should be good. Okay, got him put back together. My bowl.
This is your bowl drain plug, and it also is what gives you access to your high-speed jet in the bottom of the bowl.
That guy goes right here, and that closes off this access to your high-speed jet. And that's a 7/16 wrench. That's as snug as I want to go. Yeah, now the only thing I got to do, I have to put this float on. Now this is a crazy thing the way this goes. That little spring just simply sits there like that. Needle drops down in there. Come on, you got a little wee tiny plastic pin to pin that float. It is. Okay, now you look at that, like it should be. I'm going to reuse the washer that was on it. And the only purpose of this simply plugs this hole that lets you get access for cleaning out your low-speed jet. And when I took these carbs apart, these were buggered up, both my top and middle carbs. This screw was loose, and it should be turned right in and snugged in. Only the bottom carburetor had it seated in correctly. Seated in correctly, not incorrectly, incorrectly. Okay, idle adjustment screws in, welch plug, float assembly. Now, this guy. I think I'm going to put this device to tighten this up so I can hold it a little better. I just want to tighten these up nice and evenly, not over torquing any one screw, kind of crisscross pattern. Well, bam! There's one rebuilt carb. Ha ha! And that is my number one carb, my top carb. I guess I'm just going to keep it in this bucket still, keep it separate from the others. Well, I think that went pretty well. Let's do carburetor number 2.
As I was manipulating this damn little spring for the needle valve around, it just went boink, flying out of my hand right here. Pretty funny. It's like, oops.
Oh shit. That little thing just sprung out of my hand and it, oh my god. Stop the camera. So I had that little spring go flying on me, and I was down on my hands and knees looking around the floor, and I get up and look at it bounced, it landed on the bench. Huh. Look at how small it is. Like, that's amazing that I even saw it on the bench. And it's tricky. You got to get this. That's what I was trying to do, and it went ping. There. You You see how it clipped, that little guy clipped right in there? And then this guy sits here like this. Craziest damn thing.
Well, she's getting into the repetition here. This is just repeating the same thing with carburetors number 2 and 3, and so I'm just going to blaze through the end of this, and then we'll show you the completed carbs at the end.
Putting the bowl assembly on the final carburetor. That's carburetor number 3. What do I care? What do I know? I know I got all 3 of my carburetors rebuilt. Yeah, at the start of the year when we were going to go fishing, my boat wouldn't start at all. And I was so busy, there was no bus, no way. I had no time to work on it. Took it to a marina, highly reputable shop, and they did a terrible job on it. I got the boat back from them and it would start, yeah, but that's all. It didn't run with the crap. It would run at high speed only, it wouldn't idle. And you know, we were in a situation where we wanted to try a little trolling now and then, and oh, it was artwork. It was crazy trying to keep the engine running, eh? Rev it up, slow it down, stall, restart it, rev it up, just trying to find the sweet spot, you know. Everybody that's ever run an outboard engine at one time or other, I'm sure, has run into that kind of problem associated with that same part. Now the only thing, we've got 3 beautiful carburetors here. My fuel system components, I've ordered brand new 532nd fuel line. I ordered the proprietary Evinrude zip ties, and the reason I did that, if you don't know, they have a profile on the inside so that when you tighten them, they're perfectly round where your tie strap pulls through, so it makes a perfectly smooth round grip on your fuel line. So I ordered those. Fuel line, brass tees, brass fuel manifold. And I got emails the other day, all of those components have shipped. And the only thing about that is, okay, they're shipped, but what kind of, will there be a delay in customs or anything? Some of those components, notably the zip ties and the brass fuel manifold, are coming from Colorado. For the record, Crowley Marine, Denver, Colorado. That's where I ordered my fuel components, and those guys, good service, man. I called them and they were just bam, and those parts were. I got the email that they were in the mail like 3 days. And I didn't live in Canada. If I lived in the States, hell, they'd be at my house this week for sure. But because they got to come through customs, which involves something to do with our stupid government, which we've got basically the worst government in the world. Idiots. They could be delayed in customs for 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that, making friggin' quarantine, those idiots.
So this is going to be the conclusion of this carb rebuild video. When I do get those new fuel components and I reinstall the carbs, I'm going to videotape that and I'm going to make a separate video for that.
Beautiful.
Alrighty, thanks for watching, people.
Now we can go back, try to figure out what the heck happened in the Blue Jays ball game. They were winning 2-0, and then in the 5th inning, rain delay.